Let's go, you have anything to say?
Call this meeting to order. It's 9:30. Thank you to everyone for being here today. First item on the agenda, the survey committee report. And since Cameron's out, Dr. Barr is good enough to give us the report today.
Okay, and I asked Michelle to fill in if I missed something, but our committee has met 3 times in person. And then a week ago, Thursday, we had an onboarding, Zoom type of meeting with, our representative from Polco to show us how to navigate the survey software. We have had some opportunity to review that software and get in there and play around with it a little bit, but we still certainly need help with that because it's very daunting. What we have done so far, and we are going to be meeting next Wednesday, and Karen is going to join us in that meeting to help us with developing questions, is we've divided the ideas that have been presented from everybody here and on the committee into 4 general areas of quality of life, safety, infrastructure, and sports and leisure. And I've identified every idea that has come forward and just wrote that down. And then we will develop specific questions on how likely the individual it would be to support that area. And then we will have some general demographic questions at the very beginning, and then some questions at the end related to the tax specifically. If they felt like they would support an extension of the sales tax, and if so, would they be in favor of a permanent tax? And if it is supported, would they be in favor of a small portion of that going to ongoing budget needs? So that's kind of where we are. We're not ready to share with you right now. We've got some more refining to do on our categories and the areas and all that. That's basically what our committee has been doing. Anything I missed?
No, you did
Michelle?
great. Thank you.
Could you repeat the 4 categories?
Quality of life, safety, infrastructure, and sports and leisure. And under infrastructure, I felt like it was necessary to put a statement there that this does not relate to streets and sidewalks, so that they understood that there was other funding for that.
What are quality of life?
Well, we looked at art in the downtown area, music venues, Mr. Ed Monument and Norris Park, those types of things.
Okay,
Transportation,
okay.
Uber trolleys, somebody mentioned trolleys.
Any questions for Janet? Any further questions?
Do we have a timeline of when we think we'll have the survey ready? Approximately, generally?
I think we will have a better idea of that once we meet with Karen next week. It's not going to be ready for Redfern, I don't think. And that may not be such a bad deal because a lot of those people are out of town people anyway. But if we could have it ready for the Crawfish Festival, you know, those are mostly local people. And the student committee, I'm jumping just a little bit ahead here, but they have developed a QR code. And if we had just a small little flyer to hand out at Crawfish Festival with that QR code, it would be great.
Teaser ad.
Mhm.
I just have one quick question on the survey. Will we, before we send the survey out, will we have in, or maybe this is a secondary survey, those meetings with our local community groups?
I see those as coming after we get an idea of what
What
comes
area?
back with from the survey.
Okay,
Well, and there is an open-ended opportunity at the end to
fill in,
suggest more than what is on this.
Right.
perfect, okay.
Would there be any benefit to, adding a name and email address and those kind of things, maybe where the surveyor is from, so we might be able to cite some information out? And then in that space, throw in some sort of small giveaway, like a gift certificate or something to get people to participate.
Or like, I could probably donate a weekend at Diamond Head with a float trip.
I think that was kind of discussed at our last meeting
Okay.
from that perspective of
Sorry.
a bonus. So yes, I think that may be an opportunity. I do believe that part of, if I'm understanding this correctly, to take the survey, some of the demographic questions will address hopefully then at least age, gender, possibly name. We want them to think that this is, it's not gonna, you're not gonna be tracked by your answers, but at the same time, some generalistic questions that maybe allow for some of that will be possibly built in the beginning.
At least age.
Well,
Some
there
demographic
is,
info.
Holco told us there's an option, so you can open the survey where anyone can take it, anyone can
Right.
scan the QR code and take it, but you can also do an option where they have to
Hmm.
register because
Sign
they
up.
will then confirm whether or not they are,
Voters.
voters in the community, so
Right.
that may be
We haven't
a
kind of
second
got,
option
yeah.
after a first.
we haven't really discussed what direction we feel like that's next week's meeting. Is to discuss how we're gonna set up that.
Well, I mean, you could just have a question in there. I mean, people don't have to be truthful about it, but do you live within the city limits of Tahlequah? Are you registered to vote?
That's one of the things I have listed under
Yeah.
demographics is how long have you lived in Tahlequah? And do you typically vote in city elections?
Yeah.
Can you take the survey more than once?
There is a way to prevent that.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
That depends on if we just use a generic QR code or if we give them those link specifics, right? But then link specifics are gonna have to go to emails of individuals. So I wonder if we could maybe even collect emails in the survey? For that secondary survey, so it maybe could be more targeted and people are only taking it once?
Yeah. There will be follow-up surveys.
Yeah.
So that may be where we have to refine it. to
We
make
collect
sure-
emails on the first survey and then
Yeah.
follow-up surveys are link specific
Yeah.
potentially?
I do think we want to say city limits, not just Tahlequah, because
Agreed.
although opinions of people in the surrounding area, I think can be important and influential, the only people that can vote are people that live in the city limits.
Well, we've already touched on 3 or 4 other subjects.
We're done?
We'll get to those eventually.
Are we moving to
Expand
adjourn?
on those, So, okay, well, thank you, Janet, very much. Next item, community outreach. Dylan?
First, of course, I want to apologize. I've not done great on, we have not had any committee meetings, which is not my strong suit anyway. Kind of in the playoffs of my business, March, April, May, or 6 months of work gets done in 3 months kind of thing. So once I get back to June, I'll be a lot stronger. What I have done is a decent amount of community outreach just on my own time, as we've talked before, and I need to delegate or whatever kind of thing a little better. But kind of what we've seen, at least on April Fool's Day, that showed a lot of interest. Trey's post had 157 shares, 625 likes, and 166 comments.
Lots of engagement.
There's a lot of engagement on that subject matter. So I've kind of typed up a little thing and I'll read it off if y'all can bear
I
with
wish we
me.
could show it. Is it possible to bring it up so everybody can see?
Are you talking about the,
The Facebook post.
Yeah, I mean, did
It is-
everybody see it? Does everybody know what we're talking about? Okay, well, maybe everybody's, never mind.
Yeah.
It's like the fourth down or fifth down post.
while y'all are finding that, I'll read all this if you can bear with me. Community excitement and opportunity, a multi-purpose sports complex. Over the past several weeks, we've heard overwhelming positive feedback from the community about the idea of building a comprehensive sports complex, one that could serve Tahlequah year-round and become a centerpiece for families, youth, and economic activity. Here's a working vision. Indoor facilities, basketball courts, volleyball courts, indoor soccer, turf area. Multi-use community center, event hosting, youth programs, health and fitness initiatives. Year-round aquatics, enclosing the existing water park or building an indoor aquatic center. YMCA partnership, opportunities for childcare, fitness programs, after-school care. Tournament ready, hosting regional events that drive outside tourism, just like our goal for the new baseball and softball fields are already hopefully going to be very successful. This would not only serve our community, it would also create recurring revenue through events, tournaments, and membership while boosting local pride and identity. Right off of that subject, downtown revitalization and public services. We're also excited the momentum behind City Hall maybe moving downtown a little closer, which would bring more life to the area, centralize our operation alongside that. Maybe a new modern fire station somewhere, you know, maybe between Downing and Muskogee. That'd be kind of cool. A proposal to repurpose the current fire station into maybe a mechanic shop for all city vehicles. And that might be gaining traction, I hope, as well. This could become a cost-saving center for the city, reducing outsourcing, controlling maintenance costs, and improving efficiency. The budget and responsible planning, I'm still kind of, you know, I'm not perfect on these numbers here, but I'm still kind of sitting on this whole thing's a $50 million bond. And with interest and kind of how I think the knowledge I have heard and absorbed, and I'm not the expert, Taylor would definitely be the expert here. I'm imagining the actual cost will be 80 with interest over maybe a 15-year span. With this level of investment, it is critical that we take a hard look at our city infrastructure, water and sewage capacity, electric grid load, gas lines, accessibility, road access, and parking. Before we finalize anything, we must consult our public works, utilities, infrastructure partners to ensure we are building responsibly and sustainably. And also, just something I just remembered from this, I remember talking to Nate about, you know, they did when they built that for him, the new facility, what they didn't account for, nobody thought of was the utility bill went up. His budget didn't go up, but his utility bill went up like fourfold or something. So even those factors you got to think about in these things. Let's not, then we got quality of life investments. Let's not forget the beauty in the lifestyle Tahlequah as part of the special bond. And also provide funding to upgrade and expanding walking trails and parks, add connectivity between neighborhoods and schools and outdoor spaces, improve ADA accessibility and safety lighting along paths, and maybe even some security cameras in some more spots. So, and lighting to kind of create more safety when you're out on some of those parks. That would be great. Open conversation, community-driven vision. Everything being discussed here is a starting point. These are working concepts meant to spark ideas, feedback, and collaborations. We want community involvement every step of the way. Let's poke holes, ask hard questions, and refine these ideas. Let's not miss the opportunity to dream big and move Tahlequah forward together. My closing thoughts. A sports complex in a community hub like this could define a generation for Tahlequah. It's a legacy project, not just for sports, but for wellness, youth, family, and economic growth. Combined with upgrades to city infrastructure, parks, and downtown, this bond can be the foundation of Tahlequah's next 50 years. Let's build something future generations will be proud of. Yeah.
We've not had a committee meeting, we sure said a lot.
All right.
Dylan, I have a question on the 50 million. Do you think that's all those projects you listed, the sports center, new city hall, new fire station?
That was kind of my quick math, and that was from like a couple months ago. It could be more by 10 or less by 10, depending on subtracting, minusing how large things are. Lots of factors that I don't know the answers to.
I know when I saw Trey's post, I did not fall for it because when he said several million, I'm like, that's 10 of
Right.
millions
Yeah.
of dollars.
That's probably
Maybe 100.
Yeah.
that's probably a 20 to 25 million project, I would bet.
And then you mentioned YMCA. I mean, I know what they are and what they do, but I don't know anything about how YMCA gets involved in or brings a place to a community. Do you have any information about that?
So my theory on that, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not an expert here, I'm just trying to create discussion. But I've been to places, when we used to coach basketball and you would travel and you would go to these places like in Kansas, and you know, where they're big basketball hubs. And it was like a YMCA thing. And the YMCA director or whoever ran the whole thing, you know, so it had just people had memberships and there was areas where, you know, yoga was done and kickboxing and CrossFit or whatever, tennis. And it also was a big hub for the basketball. And in my theory is, you know, you could make these floors disassembled where you could, you know, basketball, and you could disassemble it or cover it over with soccer. You know, those things are doable with the, you know, the right engineering and architecture. But yeah, I mean, obviously, it'll take a staff to even run that thing.
Well, that's what I was really curious because, and I've seen those too, and we've got family in Kansas, and there's some fairly small towns there that have these massive, you know, 2-story brick indoor, outdoor water park YMCA's, and I'm curious if if the Y just comes in and builds that and then charges memberships, or if those are, when those come into communities, if it is something where you build the building and then they
Right.
run it or staff it or sell memberships, and I just don't know anything about
So I
that.
mean, there could be a revenue ability by it because it could be treated as a business. So memberships, you know, maybe if you're from the city, it's not too terrible, you know, and then if you wanted to come to it from an outside, you know, it could be a little bit more and you could make money. So it could be a profitable center at one point as well. And probably, I think if we've discussed in some of our meetings in the early stages, we probably need to set up a way to tour some of those places and ask how they did it in a way and what makes it run, and what's it cost to make it run, and what does the numbers look like?
There might be a little group, a good thing for the students to do some research, just call the YMCA home office and ask them, how do they develop YMCA's in communities that don't currently have one? And that way we can find out, is it a shared investment? Is it a city investment? And then they take over managing and I don't know. But we could certainly ask them to do at least some.
I'd be really interested.
I just pulled up something on the internet on how does a community go about getting a YMCA in their city? And it looks like it's a shared type of investment. Said they need to demonstrate a clear need and secure funding through partnerships with local governments, private foundations, and individual donors. And then they have 4 or 5 point steps in a process of going about it.
Okay, so it is a shared resource kind of situation.
Something else that may be under your purview, Dylan, is, and we may not be at that point yet, is to begin scheduling different meeting times and dates. And to get out and contact some of the civic groups in this town, but that, we're probably not at that point yet. At least I think we need to go to the groups and go to the community with specific items. Maybe not the community so much because we need their input. But at some point, we need to have different meeting dates and times and invite the public. And we need to begin our community outlets with regard to contacting groups here in town. So. Okay, any further questions for Dylan? None? All right, thank you, Dylan. Next item, I thought you weren't gonna be here, Dana.
That's next, May the 2nd
Oh,
is when I will be here.
we only work in 30-day increments.
Well, I was looking at my calendar. Honestly, I thought it was today. And then after I sent that email, I recognized that it said May the 2nd on the one that I responded to. And I was like, well, I'll be there tomorrow. I'll just surprise them all.
I can't keep up with all the texts.
All right, it's a
How
lot.
about the report on the NSU committee?
All right, so the students continued their research. I wouldn't say they just knocked it out of the park, would you, Karen? It was, but they certainly, we have a comprehensive list of community groups that is now available on the Google Drive. I think Karen was gonna add just a few more that may not have been on there already. It's a pretty big list at this point, so I feel like if it was only us that divided it up, we would probably have to take like 10 apiece.
Yeah.
That's how many there are. I mean, it's quite a bit. So, I think when we get to that point with Dylan and when you say we're ready, we've got the list and we can start making those contacts. They did do some, I'm gonna jump down to 8
Yeah,
because this
go ahead.
ties into what the students
Go ahead.
did. And I think this is kind of, I will say their creative abilities, this is a group, and please don't take this the wrong way, but it's a full male group. And they're not the most creative, group on the planet. And so, I would say the creative piece they brought back certainly needs to be refined, to really carry this message. But what we had asked for was a tagline. And so some of them are, "It's your future, Tahlequah." Tahlequah, these are really from the committee. Tahlequah thrives, taking Tahlequah to the top. Take charge, Tahlequah. That was from Chrissy. Tahlequah today and tomorrow was from Mark. Your city, your future, investing in Tahlequah together. Invest today, thrive tomorrow, or Tahlequah's growth. Tahlequah, I think it's Tahlequah's growth starts here. And those were from Dylan. I added just on mine, building Tahlequah's tomorrow. And then the students came back with one Tahlequah, one future. Today's vote, tomorrow's progress. Your voice, your city, your future, and together we build.
I'd like to add one because
Okay.
Dylan said this tagline a minute ago and I don't think he realized it. Your city, your legacy. That's Dylan's words, not mine.
So I think that we need some of that, we need to kind of narrow these down and what do we really like? What is the community? What do we think is a good catchphrase? And that will help kind of, I think, drive those creative pieces and the messaging for social media. That is what the students are supposed to be working on for this next month, is really putting together those creative messaging that we would put out to the community. Any thoughts?
Do they need a tagline before they
Yes,
start their
they
work?
really, I mean, it will help guide that kind of
Yeah.
creativity, right? So did anything I would ask the audience, did anything jump out to you all?
Or do you have one?
Yeah,
Come on, Chris.
Oh, y'all don't want to hear my second.
yeah, let's hear
Pick it up, put it down.
it.
Any in particular jump out to the group? They're all good. I think
They're all
good.
decent.
I like I think, I don't have a particular one that I have strong feelings about, but I think having Tahlequah in
In the
the
word,
tagline is probably important.
I
But
think
but you
so
can
too.
put that on any of them,
Mhm.
I think, but
I thought a quality future for all of Tahlequah, and spelling quality with Quahlity. I know, I'm in education, and Janet Barr's
That's
probably
what it takes.
gonna die, but.
Oh, I like that.
I don't know if you, just because Michelle was pointing it out, I don't know if you go our Tahlequah, our legacy instead of yours.
Dana, are you thinking telequality?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, not using the actual Tahlequality phrase, but just that play on the spelling of quality.
Mhm. That's a good idea.
So I don't know, how do we get past this? Because I feel like this is really, we need to,
Daunting.
I know, I wish there was one that people were like, that's it.
would you wanna do like a poll? We could send out like a poll.
That's actually a really good
That way
idea.
nobody's put on the spot necessarily.
Yeah,
If we wanna kind of narrow it down a little bit and have like 5 options or so, then we could just send out a poll via email.
no, I think that's actually a good idea. So let's do that real quick. Can we take off what we don't? Like, if we went with what Chrissy said, then it's pretty easy to get rid of a lot of the ones the students did, right? Today's vote, tomorrow's progress.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Although it could be Tahlequah's vote, Tahlequah's progress.
Right.
Yeah, you can always
Um,
add it in.
Your voice, your city, your future.
Tahlequah's voice, Tahlequah city, Tahlequah future. See the little.
I know, I feel like that one's been rewashed a few times, so I'm okay with taking that off. Is everybody okay with your?
Take off your voice.
Yeah.
You could even have a wide range and do a 2-form poll where you have people pick like their top 2 or 3. And
Yeah,
then-
like rate them.
And then you take those 3 and then you choose one. You
Yeah.
vote for the one.
We could do that. That would give us one.
I kind of like all of what I see.
Chrissy, you're saying these are separate, right? Tahlequah thrives.
Yeah, but I was just going for ones with the. Teeth, all teeth.
Taking Tahlequah to the top, take
I
charge
don't have
Tahlequah.
any strong feelings about any of them.
Okay.
I was just going.
Well, I just want to make sure those were 3 separate, right? They wouldn't
No.
be
Yeah,
one.
they were just,
Okay.
they were separate ideas. Could we maybe, if we're doing a poll to send out, just because I know this is a group that you have contact information for easily, maybe do like city employees or, I mean, cause there's 7 of us and if we have a list of 7 and everybody likes a different one, that's not really gonna help us with a
Right.
poll. And that would be a group that we have easy, quick access to that's obviously invested and just
I mean,
include.
if somebody just wants to narrow it down to 5 or 6, and then we can send it out to our department heads. I don't know if we wanna do all city, but just at least.
Whatever. I just
Yeah,
think
and then
just putting this group is not enough for.
Hang on, I think Doublehead had something to
I
say.
was gonna suggest, if you've got enough notice, we can put some info on their bill. Look for upcoming survey, and then we can actually help drive.
Put a link.
And that goes to every, customer that we have within our system. Just a suggestion.
I
Okay.
think for this, we're trying to keep this more.
No, but I
Yeah.
like that idea
For
for the
the
larger
survey.
survey, for
Yes.
sure,
Yeah.
yes. And what we're,
Saying, but at the same time, have my people that work for me, so we can keep, so if we're trying to keep it together, it's like, there's gonna be a lot of people that work for the city outside of town.
I think, yeah.
I think department, I just think with just us, if we've got 5, we might not
Yes.
have kind of a real clear,
And-
so just a little bit bigger group.
And we have 3 or 4 that talk about future. Can we narrow that down to maybe 1?
well, so we have our Tahlequah, our legacy that Dylan gave us, right? And then we have your city, your future. I don't know where you would add your city, your future, go Tahlequah. Do we take that one off?
Yeah, take it off.
Okay,
Brains freeze stuff.
investing in Tahlequah together, Tahlequah's growth starts here. Tahlequah today and tomorrow.
I take no pride in authorship.
Yeah,
Scratch it if you like.
Diana, the Parks Department likes number C.
number C, Tahlequah
Oh,
today
there you go,
and
Mark.
tomorrow.
That was our vote.
Well, that was easy.
Like that.
So we'll definitely want to leave that one on, Mark, after you were trying to get it taken off. I wonder if we don't just leave the rest. It's your future Tahlequah, and then maybe all of that Chrissy gave, what Mark gave, investing in Tahlequah together. Tahlequah's growth starts here. I put building Tahlequah's tomorrow, but we could take that off. Our Tahlequah, our legacy. And then do we like one Tahlequah, one future, or no?
Yeah, leave that one off.
Okay.
Leave that on.
And then what about today's vote, tomorrow's progress, but it would be Tahlequah's vote, Tahlequah's progress?
I
Yay,
think
nay,
that's kind of also,
too much Tahlequah.
well, no, I think it's similar,
Not action enough.
yeah.
Okay. So we'll take
I
that one
also
off.
think putting vote in there, although the initial thing is a vote, these are longer term things, so we're gonna, this will be referred to if we are good at the marketing campaign, when the first thing is finished and we do the ribbon cutting, it will be called whatever the
Right.
bond issue thing was. So putting vote in it, kind of that's just the initial step in it, right? Because then you're building things and, because I see this as a tagline going forward as we complete projects and do things.
Okay, so it looks like we maybe have 8, 9. You think that's too many?
I mean, I think it's too many unless we wanna do a second survey, like we do the first one and let it.
Narrow it down to
the top
3.
Like, yeah, like Jeremy was saying,
Tell them to pick their top 3.
yeah.
They have to.
I wonder if we don't have
Can
them.
you rank, can you do like on the free, like Survey Monkey or something, can you do a rank
Oh, yeah.
of
Yeah.
weighted vote? Because then
Yeah, then it,
that will, you don't have to vote a second time because somebody may, pick their first one but they're the only one that picks that, but everybody picks the second one and
However you guys
it might work.
Yeah, we can just do it that way, just do the one vote then.
Rank
Yeah.
voting, yeah, and just tell them to pick your first, second and third choices
I'll do the
and then
top
it'll
3.
compile it and give us the tops based on that.
I think that's a good idea. I'll type these up and get them over to you.
Awesome, thanks, Dana.
Thank you. Thank you,
So
Dan.
we're gonna do the committee and department. Yeah.
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 So
I think that's a good.
yeah.
Yeah, that'd be.
Even if we got it down to 3, then the 7 of
Right.
us,
Vote on
Exactly.
3.
Yeah.
we had to.
Yes.
Probably no way we tie.
Or take a vote of the people this next go round, right? Like, of just the audience that shows up that day. What are your favorites?
Any other questions for Dana? All right, thank you, Dana, and thank your all male group as well. Next item on the agenda, Polco engagement. Taylor? Okay.
So, Janet, I mean, she kind of covered quite a bit from our last meeting that we had with Polco. And so they did do the training with us, and showed us how to work it and all the different features that we have on there. We did add Janet, Michelle, and Cameron as users on the Polco. So those 3, myself and Taylor, were all on there. So one nice thing about it is once we get started on the survey, everybody that's on there can see this, we can be working off that same survey. So it's not like they're just individuals and just doing their own thing. We're gonna be working together as a group. I think one thing we do need to figure out when it comes time for these surveys is, like you mentioned earlier, Janet, is do we want to send it out to just these registered, verified, users that are on there? Are we gonna open this up to the whole public? We do have the option to where we can start asking people to sign up. Go ahead and sign up. We're gonna be sending out surveys. Once the survey is created, they're gonna get notified immediately to go on and start doing the survey. And then they're gonna be that verified user on there. So again, it's just something we need to figure out what we want to do. But really, I don't have much more to share. In my opinion, I think it's a great software, a great platform. I think it's gonna be great to use. I feel like it's very user friendly. And it's just something that we just gotta get those questions put together and get it out there. So I don't know if y'all have any other questions about Polco, but I'm looking forward to getting to use it.
I feel pretty strongly about people registering and being verified as voters, because if they're, if you open it to anyone, you have someone who just they don't want to pay more sales tax. They don't live in Tahlequah, they can't vote here, but they shop here, and they may, be vocal about a no. And I also think that people who are going to vote, like, it's not a lot to ask them to sign up, give us this
Not.
opinion, you know, sign up so we can verify you, so you can give us opinion on the thing you're going to go vote for anyway. And I feel like if we just make it where anyone can scan the code and, take the survey, that we're not going to get data that is helpful to us, because we may find, and I'm not talking against this, but we may find, of course, everyone supports this, rec center, because there are a lot of people that live in the Talcott area who would use that, but if they're not voters, and if you have voters saying, no, I'm more concerned about X, Y, Z, I think our data is not good if we don't, confirm that they are eligible to vote in the city of Talcott.
Yeah, and I recommend that once we're ready to start doing some teasers and start getting the word out there, that we have a QR code where people can just go ahead and register, let them know that like, we're gonna be having these surveys, go ahead and register, you're gonna get notified immediately when a survey is ready. All you have to do is just put your name and zip code, that's all you have to put. There can be options to have additional information on there, and then they can do that if they would like. But, I agree, because then that way too, they're not gonna be able to go in and do the survey again. If you open up to other people, well, I can go on using this email address and then this email address, and then you're gonna have, somebody voting 4 or 5 times, so. But yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, have any other questions about it?
I don't think so.
Anything else? All right, thank you.
I did want to share real quick, Nathan Reed, he sent me a text. So they're having their, the round table meeting on April 15th at 5 p.m. And he said that there's gonna be a spot for the committee for you
Oh,
guys to
good.
come and engage with at the round table, so.
What time did he say that was?
5,
5?
I think it was 5 p.m.
Okay.
Yeah, 5 p.m. So, I guess he just was with the legislators this morning, with the mayor, and so he wanted me to share that with you guys.
If nothing else, that's a great opportunity to start collecting those email addresses, right, for
So
further.
we can, before the survey's ready, we can have something where they can go sign up to get it when it comes out. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want, I can get a QR code created
I
and
think
we
that's
can
a
have
good idea.
something,
Even if we just do little cards, right, that's just the QR code and the slogan and sign up today
perfect.
for your
That's
voice
what we need to
tomorrow.
have before Redfern. We're gonna have running toward that.
Yeah.
That would be a good
Yeah,
opportunity.
and that would be a good opportunity for Redfern, because here's the thing, even if the out of towners fill it out, we just
It's not
discard
been
them, right?
Yeah.
Once that's been verified, but then can they verify through email? That's my thing.
Well, I don't think it's that they're discarded. We will, anyone can register and take it.
Right.
We will know
We could discard.
through who are
Mhm.
city of Talcott voters.
Cause they're signing up by zip code.
I gotcha,
So,
okay.
Yeah.
And then Polco has
Address,
a
whatever,
process where
okay.
they check to see whether or not they're a registered voter, correct? Okay, correct.
No, so that's a really, I think that, as soon as we have this, yes, I think we,
I'll go ahead and just get
Those
a
little
QR
cards,
code done.
yeah.
I'll have it ready. So once we have a tagline.
and I'll get
slogan,
this to you today, so.
we'll
we
get it
can-
on there.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
But that's going to be, so are we going to have the survey on the slogan, and the winner of that will we're just gonna say whatever one's the winner is the winner, because we will have to have, if we're gonna do this by
April 15th,
April 15th, it will be prior to our next meeting.
right.
Mhm.
Well, so I think we may have to just have a quick, even if it's a phone call or a text, right, that says, here are the top 3 that they came back with.
Yeah.
Where do you all sit with these?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's try to get her a tagline by April 15th.
Yeah, before, we need,
Yeah,
what do we
before.
need? Couple of days to get those printed, if we even send them to like the copy zone on campus or something, they
It'd be
do
nice
pretty
to
quick
have it.
and pretty cheap.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, wow. Thank you. I put this next agenda item on here because we kind of brought it up at the last meeting but we decided to follow up on it. And that was the discussion whether we should consider a permanent sales tax or continued sales tax. And Janet, you're the one that mentioned it to me before, and you made a few comments last meeting. Is there any further discussion we'd like to have along this subject,
Well,
Taylor?
I put
Yeah.
together a sheet in the pack there with some comparables of other cities in the general fund and kind of where we sit, among our comparable, communities. And, Michelle actually was the one who compiled this information for me, but, I just want to make a quick note. So we have a source line, so we know where we got the information. Where it says ordinance, believe it or not, some cities just, they don't, it's not very clear as to where their taxes go in their ordinance, or it may be outdated compared to the list that, I gave you a couple months ago related to sales tax and total sales tax of each community. So those are, I wouldn't bet that those are 100% accurate where those are listed. But interestingly enough, a lot of cities operate on 2%. However, where you see a major difference is our total city portion is 3.25%. And the average, among these cities, and that's the lowest, by far, but the average is about 4.16%. And so, generally, cities, the total city portion is about 4%. So we are, if you're looking at counts there, pretty far below, what the general, revenue is for a city. Where you might see like El Reno, for instance, they've got 0.25% to public safety. That's likely a permanent sales tax. I mean, we'd have to go in and dive into this, but that's likely a permanent sales tax to pay for police and fire salaries, maybe pay for equipment. A good example is Muskogee. We know where that, lands. And so 0.95% is dedicated to personnel and equipment. That just supplements your general fund. It is dedicated to a certain entity or a certain group, but it's not a capital improvement tax, so to speak. Does that make sense? And so, you'd have to really dive into a lot of these numbers to really figure out, where some of the money's going for other communities. But the glaring, details here to me, is the general fund revenue, line or column. We are, we're setting at about, $8 million less than the average, general fund dollars. And that, and some of these communities are still operating on 2%. And so they're receiving revenues in a different way. And it could be a number of different things. But I just kind of wanted to point that out. And if there's any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
Is there a county sales tax involved in?
Yes.
Included in this 9.5%?
Yeah, so really what kind of throws us off is, you see, okay, we're about where we're at on general fund 2%, city's portion, we're really low. And then when you see our overall sales tax, we're right where everybody else is again.
Yeah,
That's due to the county sales tax. State sales tax is 4.5% across the board for every community. And then the county sales tax varies among each county. And so where Tulsa County, for instance, there's a 0 sales tax in Tulsa County. Oklahoma County, 0 sales tax. So Bethany, or not Bethany. What was the lowest one? Yeah, Bethany, 8.5%. There's no county sales tax there. And so moving our sales tax up gets us out of the average, for the overall sales tax due to the county sales tax. So nothing against the county getting, I mean, they've got their services they've got to provide too. But just some counties do it differently.
How are other counties funded? I'm just curious about these counties that can exist on 0 sales tax.
So your property taxes, that's how counties are generally funded.
And will we not give a portion of our property taxes to our county officials?
No, they get all of it. The city receives none of it. So,
Oh,
yeah.
and they get it.
but it's divvied up among like the school
Like school
districts and the
gets it,
technology
yeah.
centers and the things like that.
The ad valorem.
true.
Part of it.
But the county government operates off property taxes. And there's pretty much nowhere in the city of Tahlequah where you can, or state of Oklahoma. State of Oklahoma is the only state in the nation that cities are not funded by property tax in any way. You can go to the people to fund capital projects and go to bonds. for a short period of time, but you cannot go to a vote of the people to have a perpetual tax on property for municipal purposes.
Gotcha.
That's a whole nother topic.
Just curious.
But Cherokee County, they are about capped out. There's a cap on what counties can tax, and it's 2%. I think they're at 1.85. And that, there's a distribution in the county too. So a portion goes to rural fire departments, and the city fire department actually too. And then, the detention center, jail, a portion goes to that. So, and I think some other is just goes to general fund.
And are the county sales taxes all permanent?
They are currently, yes. And just a note, you know, the county does receive the sales tax in the city limits too. So you're paying, what you pay in the city, you're paying the city sales tax and county sales tax. You pay in the county, you're only paying county sales tax. Most of the sales tax generated for the county occurs in the city.
Mark, I don't think we need to decide today whether we're gonna support a permanent or a continuing, but I think we need to keep our minds open and perhaps put that into the survey of whether people would support that or not.
I think that's a great idea.
And yet, and looking at these figures that Taylor has presented, if it were a permanent tax, it would put us up to 4%, and we're still within the boundaries of what other cities are doing.
Absolutely. And I mean, I really, you know, I think having this list, you can see, even if it's a permanent tax or a portion of the sales tax becomes permanent, I think the voters would likely be more interested, and we'll see maybe through polling and communication, if it's dedicated for a certain purpose. So, you know, things like public safety. If it's dedicated for perpetuity, specifically for public safety, or building maintenance, you know, something like that, to where, it's general fund, I think scares people a little bit, you know, it's kind of, you can use it for however the governing body sees fit. And, that can be scary at times. So,
When I saw this morning, Taylor, the first thing that jumped off the page at me was, how much the general fund was funded in other communities. I really had no idea. But in my discussions, or maybe a question for you, would you say that our police, force is adequate for the population that we serve?
yeah, we're currently having that discussion, you know, we're doing our union negotiations, and, we're looking at all those figures per capita numbers.
What's your general feeling now?
I think we can probably use, a couple more officers. And that may not be, you know, this year, getting that achieved, but, you know, it's kind of got to be ramped up. So, fire, is about there, but it's still a volunteer, department, you know, and so ramping that up to a full.
Point to me, and not that I have anything against volunteer firefighters, I think they're great. Anybody who wants to go out and fight fire.
Absolutely.
You know, 100% support them. But, a city this size, you know, that would be an interesting conversation to have with other people to do what you do. You know, how much volunteer force are you relying on? I think ours is about a third.
Well, I'll say at a city our size, they're typically not volunteer. They don't have any volunteers.
Right.
Yeah.
So what jumped out to me was the fact that I don't believe we have adequate funding for the general fund. And based upon some of the things that I've heard within the community in the last 3 months, you know, I don't know a better way to say this, but the city's looking for revenue. And so in my mind, considering this capital project, if we go to a permanent tax, aren't we changing the wording of the ordinance, which is something we didn't want to do? We wanted to stay, no changes, just more progress. You know, that was kind of the thing that was brought in. If we're gonna make a change to a permanent, then I say you're gonna have to push some towards the general fund, because if you don't, I kind of see civil services cratering. But That's just my opinion.
You brought this up last meeting, that if we did want to make a piece of this permanent, that we'd have to have two separate ballot questions.
Yeah, I did
talk-
I talked to legal counsel and
Yeah, and that was brought
his
up.
recommendation would be,
That is all.
Even if we were, we may have to have it if we're dedicating it to salaries versus capital projects, right?
yeah, so, no, I think the recommendation, and we didn't have a very in-depth conversation about it, but unless it was written to say, okay, 3/4 for 15 years, and then it ratchets down to a perpetual 0.15% forever for the maintenance of those, of the facilities, that can likely be done in one ballot. But if you're totally separating the two issues, it needs to be on two separate voting decisions.
Thank you for compiling
Yeah.
this, Bailey.
And if you guys need any more information or more explanation, or, I mean, we can dive into some of this. Weatherford, for instance, they've got some going to hospitals, some coming to SWASU, bond issue, public schools getting a piece, community centers getting a piece. I mean, Sans or Sepulpa for crying out loud. I mean, they've got it chopped up so much, you know, you wonder if they keep track of it, but, anyway.
And we can include on the survey a question about considering a piece of it as permanent versus continued.
Yeah.
Will we do that then?
Yeah,
I think that's a
specific question to ask.
Yeah. one question. Okay, good, thank you.
I do have a quick question, just going back to the survey, and I'm sorry for jumping around, but we are, from what Taylor has told us, things like roads and sewer and flooding issues across the city of Tahlequah are gonna be taken care of through another fund, right? How do we, because I feel like that is a lot of what we're gonna get back from
I wrote here and it needs,
revising.
refined. On the infrastructure, this does not include streets and sidewalks, as there is another bond issue addressing these issues. Or
Okay,
another source, I don't know if it's a bond issue, but another source of revenue, that's what I probably should say.
okay. Okay, that was just, I just thought about that, because I thought that's what I sense coming back a lot is
Well,
the
we
quality
did,
of our roads, the flooding
Right.
issues.
they're
the-
gonna tell us about Park Hill Road.
Yes, exactly.
Does the stormwater.
The stormwater drain.
fee Address flooding. and things like
Well, I thought that stormwater was separate, but I don't know.
So yeah, there's a few different pots of money. So the stormwater fee on utility bill,
that?
that would in general, take care of any stormwater type improvements. And then the street and sidewalk would focus on street and sidewalks, obviously, but it would, take care of drainage within that right of way piece. So areas that,
Prone to flooding.
right on the street, take care of that through street and sidewalk fund or the stormwater fund too.
Taylor, we also have just
That's-
an alley.
Right.
We have what?
We also have a street and alley fund
Oh, okay.
that's paid for with the excise tax.
Well, yeah, it's the gas tax that I was talking about. It produces about 10% of what the street and sidewalk tax would generate.
Speaking of floodwater, Downing College this morning
Yep.
was
But I
a
didn't.
mess. I know there's plans.
No,
but
I,
That's a point of privilege, because I learned four times this morning.
on mornings like that, or on days like that, whenever you get a hard run, we encourage our staff to get out and take a look at areas that, need to be looked at. So let's go out and do this work.
College and Downing.
Thank you.
First in mission.
Taylor, you're still up. The next item was about architectural engineering. Do we need to be addressing that yet?
Yeah, so, we do, we have the RFQ going out next Monday.
Okay.
And there's the schedule, it will give them 20+ days to respond to that. It'll be the month, all the responses we should get the Monday prior to this meeting. So you guys, or that group we made last month, will get that list. Next meeting, we'll go over that list, narrow down maybe 3 or 4 candidates to interview, conduct interviews through the month of May. And then June, hopefully, land on, 1 or 2 firms, for that process, so. And then with that, we'll be able to generate some cost estimates on some of the projects that we've all discussed, more accurate details. And hopefully we'll set aside some money, next budget, cycle for those costs,
Okay,
so
That's good. Thank
no
you.
action needed.
Any further questions for Taylor on that subject? Okay, how about your taglines? Do we need more discussion on taglines?
I don't
No,
think so. I think we've got it done.
No, okay.
I'll type it up, send it to Karen.
Next item, project, oh, you wanna go?
I was just thinking, is there any benefit to including somehow in the tagline that it's not new money?
We're
An
revoting.
extension of the same money. It's no change. It's, that kind of thing that.
Yeah.
Second thought is you can have multiple taglines,
Oh, for sure.
you know. Yeah, you can put one out everywhere and use it, but you can also have multiple ones, because different things are gonna speak to different people.
That's true.
On our survey,
On our survey, we have indicated that it's not, that it's a continuation of an existing tax. And maybe we need to use the words not new money in here
No, I
somewhere.
think it is a new tax, but it's not a tax increase.
Not a tax.
We can't say it's not a new tax because it
Okay.
is new, but it does not increase the tax rate.
No changes to your current tax.
Yes.
And use plain verbiage. I'm on the school board of Holbrook, and that's our biggest deal whenever we try to, the continuation of the bond, everybody's like, well, if we don't continue, it, we're not gonna pay taxes. It's like, yeah, you are, like, this is just.
Yeah.
It's.
Yeah.
You need it as simple as possible for people.
That
But we
fifth
could
grade level.
say, so the property taxes are different because you can continue the millage and your taxes can still go up because the value is reassessed, but this isn't like that. The total tax rate in the city of Tahlequah will remain 9.5%. So there is no increase taxes or tax rate for sales tax, but it is a new tax because the other one falls off. So
Mhm.
We're just
And so you
voting
wanna
on
be
how to
clear about how-
respend the
yeah.
money.
Hey, Taylor, how much revenue loss has been associated with no tax on food?
So that was just the state sales tax.
Oh, just the state, okay.
Yeah, so like
You
49%
still pay
of the state,
sales tax.
the city still the same that.
You gotta shop for it.
That would
You're
have-
not a grocery store person?
We would be really hurting if that did.
Correct.
Right.
That would be,
Sorry for that.
I'd like to see us stick though with one tagline.
I do too.
I think it keeps it.
But
just keeps it
communicates
short and
everything
simpler
needed.
and sweeter all the way around, and I think the separate issue, and that's a good point, Jim, it's no new taxes, no tax increase involved. I think that probably should be maintained separately.
Well,
Or
that
if
is
it's
more
more
meeting with people
below,
and
right.
Yeah.
putting out.
It's on every
graphics. Yeah,
survey.
We
It's-
say that, we tell
And we
people.
could still put it on there.
so just one comment on the tagline but this is just guys, for those who are gonna vote. When we first got together, I kind of wanted you guys to think about, programs like the MAPS projects in Oklahoma City, the Vision projects in Tulsa County. And so as you're voting, and Chrissy, to your point, everything that Oklahoma City has done in the last 35 years related to the maps, that's been, this is MAPS 4, MAPS 3, MAPS 2. So
Something that could carry.
that you carry on, as a, this project was funded by this, thank you, and carry it on for the next year, so. Anyway.
From the school board or the school bond strategies of things, I mean, what passes bonds? It's the kids, right? So still circling back to this, I do think the complex will be what wins the vote and you put everything else in with it. Like, I think that's what will get the voters there and they will say yes because people will say yes to the kids. And then all those other things will just be fell into it. And that's generally how school bonds get passed. And what I've known with keys and stuff when I was involved with that stuff. And I'm sure it's the same mindset for you as
I
well.
think we have to see numbers on that, because I don't think a 15-year three-quarter sales tax gets us that list of things.
Yeah, we
But
gotta,
it may not be, I mean, it may be a 25-year.
let me spread out to pull it all.
But that is part of with the architecture firm, there's moving pieces here, because we can't say, we want you, if we only have $50 million, then we can't be asking people about whether or not they would support a $60 million bond package, because you have to deliver what you promise.
Yeah.
And so when we get an architecture firm, and I think we can still have these things on the survey, but it might be, okay, we do the indoor basketball and soccer, but we can't do water for that number. And so we can talk about them in general terms, an indoor rec center, but until we see numbers on what it's gonna cost. Even the same thing with City Hall, we can talk about City Hall, but is that a, 3-story, 50,000 square feet facility, or is it a 1-story, 10,000 square foot facility? And so I think we can be general in, will you support City Hall? Will you support a new fire station? Will you support an indoor rec center? But we can't be pushing out Trey's picture and saying, hey, this is what we're gonna build.
Exactly.
We can't afford that.
I agree. And we will have to,
So, and I've had multiple people come up to me and say, hey, well, the hospital needs X, the hospital needs Y, we need a new hospital. I believe, and this is, she can correct me if I'm wrong, but about $400 million is being spent on.
471 or something.
Yeah. So 122 beds, and the way you used to talk about that is number of beds times a million. That was when I started. Now it's 3 or 4 million a bed. So if you start talking about using part of this tax to update the hospital, upgrade the hospital, I can chew up $80 million really quick. And that's sad to say, but that's the reality of it. So if we're spending 50 or 60 over here, there's not any money left for hospital
Upgrading
renovation.
hospital. Yeah.
So it's just, that's the reality.
But I also think that's why we're going to the community, right?
Right.
Yes, he had great response, but we may have community groups that come back and say, no, this is really what we want for Tahlequah, right? With loud voices. And so I think we'll just see, right? They may all come back and say, we want a new hospital. They're non-natives, right?
That's kind of the exciting thing about all this. It's just discussion and we're trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Right.
Jim, to your point, we could spend 135 million on infrastructure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're dropping in the bucket here.
You give any department 100 million, right? I'm sure that they have a wish
Should-
list of
should
things
we-
they could do.
Should we ask the public in this survey whether they'd support a 10-year bond or a 15-year bond?
I
A
think they'll
10-year
think-
bond that would raise, I don't know, 40 million to 49 million, or a 15-year bond that'll raise 50 million to 73 million, depending upon the 2% or 3% growth. Should we ask the public that? They may say, no, we only want this for 10 years.
I think that gets,
Or is that this
I
group's
think that it's a little
responsibility?
tricky.
It's a lot of
The
education.
short-term versus permanent is kind of, everything else is in the weeds, I think. What I do, we've still talked about whether or not, we have talked about continuing. There is an opportunity to raise, add an additional 0.25. So we are doing a 1%, which raises our total to, it would be 9.75 instead of 9.5 overall. But I do think that is worthy of a survey question. Because if we really do want a $60 million indoor recreation center, and we can do that with a new tax, people may be,
Yeah.
Some people don't like taxes at all. Some people are fine with paying what they currently pay, but don't want new. And some people will support a new if it's something that they're passionate about. And if the bigger projects we talk about and the more money we talk about, it's either we've got to extend this thing for 30 years, or we have to actually raise the tax rate so we get more revenue. And I think it's worth a conversation with voters of, would they be willing to increase for projects that they supported?
I think it's also difficult for the general public that doesn't have any experience in this realm to understand how much a hospital improvement costs or how much a community building like what you're proposing costs. I mean, until we've talked through these numbers, I don't know that I would have put those kind of numbers on it, right? So I feel like it's hard for some people to kind of grasp how much money does it cost and what are we able to raise through this bond issue?
Cause that's hard when you see it and, you know, on the school barn side, you see the amount is 80 million,
Right.
but you only get 58 million of that to spend because you have to pay the interest and all of that. And it is hard, but what you tell them you're doing is the full amount because that's the actual amount of tax dollars that is spent for that thing. And then you don't, you know, it's some percentage of that that's available to spend.
Right.
And it's difficult.
Most of these buildings, I think there is a number to it in some sense. It's anywhere from $200 a square foot to $400 a square foot, depending on what you're doing. The facilities would probably be closer to 200 because it's more open space. To do city hall could be closer to $400 a square foot. Like there is numbers out there, just like building houses are 175 a square foot right now or something like that.
Which brings us to our next subject. Any other project suggestions? Like I said last month, the hardest task this group will face is paring these great ideas down to within our bonding capability, pure and simple. So,
But hopefully through all the surveys, the community can
Yes.
help us do that, right? And we're not making that decision.
correct. Yeah, without information.
Yeah.
Okay. Public comments. Anyone have anything to say to the group? Public comments.
We'll just say to the city of Tahlequah, regarding recreation, I've spent many hours in the last week at the new, turf fields and they are awesome.
Nice.
That is a game. I mean, we played ball Sunday night and it rained Sunday and we would have been playing those games in June last year. And,
Awesome.
it's full out there. We need more bathrooms. But it's awesome and they're full, there's kids everywhere. And that's just on the softball, baseball side of the soccer is, it's really, if you don't have a kid playing, just driving by there is something to see for this community because it is hundreds of people out there every day of the week. We're playing ball every day of the week. We have games on Wednesdays and Sunday nights and, now there's hopefully some more stuff, you know, we need some places where folks can run and grab ice and snacks out there. So I'm hoping somebody's building something out there soon, but it is really, really cool.
Does it not have a concession stand?
Yeah, but I mean, when they're doing tournaments and stuff and people want to go get a real meal and a
There's
real
nothing
big-
close.
So there needs, and I'm sure it's coming because there's a concentrated group of folks that are, spending money out there and being able to run down the street instead of, you know, Dano's is the closest place to drive. It really is. And, so yeah, but it is really cool.
Sounds like some beach runs out there would be a great idea.
Okay. anything
No, I
else
think
come
we-
forward?
Yeah.
Chris?
I was just gonna say something, I spoke to a couple people around the community. I'm the trash guy, by the way. I pick it up, put it down. That's why you don't want my slogan. But some of the things that was discussed was, we have a lot of different outlets for recreation. You know, you have, Marcoma, you have NSU, you have all, you know, Aeropit, all this other stuff. But a lot of us that have kids that are going to the sports complex and stuff like that, like we want to have a place to take our kids. Like I have a 6-year-old that wants to go play. He thinks he's older than what he is. You know, if I go to the fit, like he's playing with 20-year-old kids, 19-year-old kids. You know, I gotta, you know, walk, watch, do all this other stuff. But like a YMCA, something for the youth, like that's gonna attract a lot of people. If there's a way that we can go inside with like a YMCA, you know, get a membership going, something that's gonna pay for itself and keep going. It's kind of like you said, you have to see some of like a return on investment type deal. That's the way you're gonna have to move it. I personally, I'm just speaking because I have a small child, you know, Eric has a small child, Taylor, all these guys. We have to find something for the youth, and when you sell it on the youth, that's kind of the direction. We have to remember that this is for our kids, not like focused for the kids, like small kids, not older ones that can, get a ticket, like the smaller aspects. So that's the only thing I wanted to bring up is that that's what, Anthus Brennan was expanded for, was to focus on that. And we gotta remember that, so. But anyway, it's my opinion, so.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
$1 million budget.
Yeah. I'd just like to reiterate, we gotta have money on the back end to run this stuff.
Yes.
So, with the park going this last weekend, I spent thousands of dollars last week. Those concession stands, that's $5,000 in one bill. $4,000 on the pool, and the only water it's in is what's raining right now. So that's just the chemicals. So now we're not talking salaries and all the other part of that. So please, when you guys are looking at this, having a $25 million rec center is great, but there's got to be 10 employees. There's got to be all the other side. The new turf fields, we got an 8 to 10 year period on those. We're out another $4 to $5 million to returf those. So the stuff that we've got to be thinking ahead as we're rolling, okay? All right, I guess.
Any other gentlemen?
I can't come to these without saying something. But I'll be brief. Again, I'm looking forward to, I just want to keep us in the conversation at the library. If you, need any help disseminating information out, we're here to help with that. That's what we do. Also, I do want to share an exciting opportunity. The Library of Congress, is coming to tour our facility on April 24th for a possible location to, begin. It's kind of a nationwide initiative to do immersive, programming, for lack of a better word. If you think that's things like in Tulsa, they have Van Gogh, that immersive display, we're talking that level stuff. They heard about our campaign in Muskogee, and Muskogee and Tahlequah are being looked at as possible sites. So we have attraction value. So thank you for keeping us in consideration. If you need any help, let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments to come before the group? All right. Well, thank you all for being here today. Everyone got their little assignments to do, so let's have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
You just say adjourn.
All over.
Aye.
I got slow.